what is going on? She was like, oh, we switch bodies. And I freaked out because that's a lot of pressure.
Wednesday Season 2 was the most challenging job some of the cast had ever had to do, and they went to extreme lengths to follow the strict rules laid by the show to give us the best performance of their lives. And you won't believe the emotional torture Emma Myers went through this season as we dive deeper into the video. Starting with cast members who went through physical transformation in the show, we couldn't tell who was playing the zombie when Slurp first appeared on the screen until we found out that it was Owen Painter after he had sucked enough brain to come back to life. However, the crazy reason why Owen nailed his role as Slurp was heavily dependent on the strange rule that he had to start practicing for the role months before filming. One of the first things he had to do was to start acting like a zombie in his own home, so Owen started throwing himself around his apartment because Slurp couldn't walk properly when he first came to life. So, for months, Owen would throw and flop himself all over the floor, and he did this dutifully for many months without breaking character, even when filming was still far away. He also mentioned that his actions as Slurp disturbed his neighbors at home, but he had to stay committed to the role right from that moment because he needed to get it right. But then, his practice of becoming Slurp got even more dangerous as he pretended that his nervous system was shutting down.
I was just trying to come up with gags around your nervous system not being able to work right or something like that.
Following this rule, Owen tried some scary stunts in his apartment. He twisted his limbs to their limits and kept pushing himself like he had lost control of his body with an imaginary leash on his neck, keeping him restrained. Practicing these things dutifully showed that Owen wasn't only following the rule, he was determined to bring on his best performance as a zombie. Crazily enough, he didn't stop his weird practices even after filming officially started because he had to also strictly follow another rule of patience, which made him sit for 4 hours every filming day to get his zombie makeup done, and also would stay in the makeup for the whole day and couldn't change back into himself unless his job for the day was done. However, following this rule came with some inconveniences, which he didn't mind because he had the opportunity to meet Lady Gaga while wearing his full Slurp makeup, and nothing could be darker and more iconic than that. However, Emma has an unfortunate story regarding following the rules on the show, which we will reveal as we progress soon. When it comes to strict rules on this show, the cast all had insane ones tailored to their specific appearance in the show, and while Owen was being a wreck and a zombie, Hunter Doohan's rules were quite different and special. In Season 2, Hunter's character, Tyler, had changed so much that people started to make fan edits of him and thirst over his new oily body even when he was chained up in a psychiatric hospital. And Hunter revealed it was no small work getting his body to look like that. Although he didn't have to do anything for his hide form because that was made easy with CGI, Hunter focused on getting his body to look really good, and he worked out a lot to prepare his body for this scene. So, it took some bulking up before he could turn that shirtless shot of him into one that would make the fans thirsty. But it gets super interesting because all Hunter had to do for Season 2 wasn't just limited to looking his best, as he also had to practice some dangerous stunts in his own home, just like Owen did, and that is getting chained up in his apartment as much as he could. Hunter had to sit at home and chain himself to practice for his scenes where he was chained at the hospital. However, there was even more he had to do for his role. In Season 2, Tyler is also quite strong in his human form, as seen when he throws someone across the room, and he admitted he can't do that in real life, which made him take the rules very seriously by making himself feel feral and look like a caged animal, which took a lot of exercising, strong will, and a state of mind where he had to believe he was a monster to achieve that. However, Emma didn't even have the opportunity to get into a state of mind she needed for her performance in Season 2, and it's the ultimate betrayal you can't afford not to know. But before we get into the saddest part of the cast's strict rules, let's discuss Evie Templeton, who portrays Agnes and had the most rigorous rules surrounding her performance on the show. The breakout star from Wednesday Season 2 poured herself into the role. First, Evie was seriously studying for school while filming on the set of Wednesday, yet still managed to deliver an impressive performance. Interestingly, her schoolwork didn't hold her back from still going through the strict rules of bringing out the best of her character. One of the strict rules Evie had to follow was to train her eyes to communicate like Wednesday did, as she was hired to imitate the character, and Tim Burton helped her guide Agnes's specific gaze, as it was also essential to see how distinct she was from Wednesday, even though she was also very much like her. Evie had to sign up for dance lessons in Dublin to master her dancing skills and be ready for her dance choreography with Emma Myers in the show. As a teenager who had schoolwork on the side, Evie had to juggle between her own home in Ireland for filming constantly, and one of the strictest rules she had to follow at this point was keeping a balance between her everyday life and Nevermore. Funnily enough, Evie following this particular rule, saying, "It's nice to have this life that's kind of separate from everything else, from the crazy, surreal experience that I had filming in Ireland." But then there's more to why Evie nailed her role so perfectly, and that was fully immersing herself in Agnes's headspace. And another strict rule she followed was excessive consumption of classic films. Evie had to watch Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to help her develop her character's elements of madness. She drew heavy inspiration from Meryl Streep's role in The Hours and kept watching every classic film she could find to better relate to Agnes and get into her mental headspace. Evie was consumed by this character, which was the only way she could deliver such an extraordinary performance, as she kept a handwritten journal where she wrote observations and ideas about Agnes. She filled her notes with Agnes's origin and motivation. She added an intense dedication to her preparation for the role by finding an earthy signature perfume for the character, which she wore throughout filming to immerse herself in the role further. But then, you are wrong if you think that's all there is to Evie's strict routines of embodying Agnes, because that's not all. The actor went on a deeper, dark journey to assemble a mood board with gothic pictures, scrawled notes, a small toy knife from the Cluedo board game, the drawing of a giant eye, a sample of Agnes's red wig, and 3 red paper roses that represent Agnes, Wednesday, and Enid. Doing all of this was so fun for Evie, who immediately connected with Agnes on set, but the most fun she had following the rules on set was the dance routine she had with Emma. Evie mentioned that she absolutely enjoyed watching Jenna Ortega's viral Wednesday dance in season 1 and even recreated the moves with her sister in pajamas. In their dance scene in season 2, Evie lifted Emma and she revealed her thought process when all that was happening, saying, "During all of the lifts, I was just like, don't drop Emma, don't drop M, don't drop M. I do not want to be responsible for dropping Emma on her head, but she's very light and it was very easy." Emma also had lots of fun filming their dancing sequence, which was particularly challenging because they had to dance without music.
We weren't even allowed to hear it. We could only dance to like the drum beat.
So they had to dance to the count track, but another insane rule they had to follow was practice in their ball gowns, which was restrictive and didn't give enough room to dance, but they had to find ways of pulling it off somehow, and they had to continuously rehearse the scene for 2 days before filming. Also, when we see Agnes disappear and Emma dancing in the air, she had to do all that on a rig and maintain her balance.
It's also really hard with the VFX of it all. They built rigs for me to like fly on, essentially.
Despite Emma having a lot of fun following the rules of the dance sequence, it was emotional when switching roles with Jenna Ortega to portray Wednesday. What could have been a fascinating journey for Emma turned into a disaster because of how the rules were communicated to her. Before she was informed, every crew and cast member knew about Enid switching to Wednesday.
I remember doing all these fittings and sitting in hair and makeup and stuff, and they'd be like, "Oh, so when you are Wednesday, like this is what'll happen," and I'm being like, "What?"
For an actor who had been playing a completely different and opposite role to Wednesday, she got little to no preparation to get into the most challenging moments of her filming for the show, and it wasn't until she went to ask Jenna what people meant about her becoming Wednesday that she fully understood the massive task in front of her. Usually, Emma would have preferred to have been informed to give her more time to prepare for the role, but no one told her, and she was barely ready at all, as she had only a month's notice before they started filming the sequence. Learning about this challenging task made Emma even tear up, but considering how she nailed the role, it was a wicked decision to have blindsided her on her most critical performance on the show. However, Jenna had followed all the strict rules she needed for her role as Wednesday in season 1 by learning to play cello, fencing, and all the characters' unique abilities, as season 2 felt much different for the actor. Jenna revealed that she relaxed more in season 2 as she was well informed about her character. Also, it was a very different experience for Isaac Ordonez, who plays Pugsley, as he got a bigger arc in season 2, and for that, he had to follow the strict rule of knowing where his mark was while filming without looking at the floor. Isaac mentioned that he got great help from Luis Guzman, who plays his dad, saying, "We finished early on a certain day, so he asked some of the crew to stick around. We did camera exercises, which did prove very useful later on." He explained how Luis would place a mark on the floor and tell him what kind of lens was being used to film. Then, they'd walk him out of the room and switch where the mark was, and he had to find the right spot on the camera without looking at the floor or having an idea where his mark was. Another character who received a lot of screen time in season 2 was Catherine Zeta-Jones, portraying Morticia as a mother to Wednesday and a daughter to Grandmama Hester. She also revealed that the strict rule she had to follow was in her relationship with both characters. Catherine explained, "The relationship I have with Wednesday is nothing like the one I have with my daughter, but I've seen other mothers have that relationship with their daughters. My relationship with Hester is nothing like my relationship with my mother, but I know people who do have that relationship." So, getting to play this complicated dynamic and making it her truth despite being far from her reality was a crazy thing she had to do on the show, which she absolutely enjoyed.